Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. Amen.
You know, programs like this don't just happen. It requires a great collaboration between groups, as I mentioned before. And I mentioned that this is an effort with Merck Pharmaceutical, and we have a representative, particularly Patricia Bustin. If you just raise your hand for us, just raise it up there. She is the Senior Specialist, Medical Affairs, Patient Innovation and Engagement, Patient Advocacy at Merck. And, you know, it is partners like this that make these things happen. So thank you very much for your continued support. I'd like to bring up Ms. Shanika Bond, so she can give greetings from HEAL. She is the Regional Director, Community Outreach and Advocacy Engagement.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank Bishop Felton for allowing us into his house to partner with us for this great, amazing two-day program that we've had so far. I also want to thank Mount Airy Church of God in Christ, Kingdom Health Ministry, and their coordinator, Dr. Charlotte Morris, for this great partnership as well. And of course, we could not do this without amazing sponsors like Merck. They see us, they see the amazing work that we do, and they want to partner with us to bring this information to you all. So I thank Merck, thank you, Ms. Patricia, for being here. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a great day of just learning and just things that you can take back to your families and your communities to help each other. Thank you.
You know, some people got style and know how to enter a room at the right time, the right way, and that, you know, couldn't say any more about Representative Morgan Cephas. You've all felt that presence when she came in here. I know you felt it. Anyway, but Representative Cephas is a native of West Philadelphia, and she's a graduate of the University of Virginia with a degree in political science. She has represented, as you all know, the 192nd House District here in Philadelphia, and in the House of Representatives here since 2016. And she currently chairs the Philadelphia House delegation. At a recent town hall meeting, commenting on the current political turmoil, Representative Cephas said that it's more important than ever to meet people where they are and speak directly with the community about how changes in government and local services might affect them. In the General Assembly, she has worked to expand access to health care and to improve health outcomes. With that, I'd like to have Representative Cephas come up and say a few words for us. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Come on, we are in the house of God. We are on this beautiful Saturday. I need to just hear a little bit more vigor, particularly given the topic that we are talking about, given that it has touched so many families. So can I say again, good morning? Good morning. Fantastic. So as he said, I am State Representative Morgan Cephas, proudly representing the 192nd Legislative District in West Philadelphia. I also have the distinct pleasure of chairing the House of Representatives when it comes to the Philadelphia delegation. I sometimes like to say it's about herding cats, but it is an amazing, group of leaders that are up in Harrisburg, really trying to make a difference here in the city of Philadelphia. And why I feel like that is important is because a significant number of the challenges that we see in our city, whether it be our poverty rate, healthcare, access to education, or when it comes to environmental stewardship, all of these things are issues that we keep top of mind and to ensure that we are moving the needle in the right direction, particularly in this moment where we are seeing the hostile nature of Washington, D.C. And I know this isn't political, but every day of our lives is political, particularly with the decisions that are being made down there. And one of the things I can absolutely say is in the House of Representatives, we have the distinct pleasure of having Joanna McClinton, our speaker, with the gavel. And why that is important is because we have the opportunity to set the agenda. And this is something that we haven't had in close to 10 to 15 years. So why that is significant, again, we are able to set the agenda, particularly as it relates to the issues that we see in the city of Philadelphia that we deem as important. So when it comes to education funding, we have not seen a significant investment in education when it comes to the city of Philadelphia in decades after decades. But because we have that gavel and because we are in leadership, we are able to deliver that for the city of Philadelphia. We've also been able to deliver significant strides in healthcare, particularly as it relates to this issue that we are fighting for today. We know that too many families in Philadelphia and across Pennsylvania, including my own, have been touched by cancer. My mother, my grandmother, and my father, all touched by cancer. Luckily, we still have my mother, but we did lose my father and my grandmother to both lung cancer. So we absolutely know that this is a significant issue, particularly in Black and brown communities. And it's going to take events like this, organizations like Merck, as well as the Hill Collaborative, to be very intentional about not just doing the research, but ensuring that we are part of studies, but also making sure that we are making the investments in an effort to be intentional to change the tide on this issue. Again, because when you look at what's happening down in Washington, D.C., and when they're eliminating NIH dollars, that means they are not just eliminating the research that will be required to get us to a world where we do not have to worry about this catastrophic issue, but it's also about disrupting the pipeline of medical professionals that actually do the research. And we are eds, meds, and beds here in the city of Philadelphia. So when we talk about meds, that is a significant level of resources that we are potentially losing as a direct result of what is happening down in Washington, D.C. So we gotta stay steadfast in ensuring that we are doing our part in Harrisburg, doing our part locally, and making sure that we're standing in the gap for our communities and each other when it comes to really addressing this issue. So I wanna really thank Bishop J. Lewis Felton from the Mount Airy Kingdom Health Ministry and all of today's organizers for bringing us together for this powerful moment. That's why efforts on the ground and, again, events like this matter so much. They give patients and families a voice by connecting them to resources. They remind our health system to listen to those voices and adapt to the needs of the people they serve. They call on policymakers like myself to use our voices and our seat at the table to close gaps and fight for equity and care. One of the things I can say is that when we talk about cancer, it is not a bipartisan issue. It impacts us in urban communities, rural communities, suburban communities. It has no race, color, gender. It impacts us all, which is why one of the very first bills, believe it or not, we were able to work across the aisle in Harrisburg, and we have the Republican-style Washington, D.C. kind of Republicans. But this was the first bill when it came to breast cancer screening that we were able to get to the governor's desk as a direct result of these type of conversations impacting every single community. Because we are resource rich here in the city of Philadelphia. But again, we still have gaps in healthcare and gaps in services. And if you can only imagine what is happening with our rural counties across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they have less access than we have, which is why this is an issue that we should be able to collectively move across the finish line, and we've seen that done in Harrisburg. So again, we begin today. I encourage each of you, be an advocate, use your voice for yourself, for your family, and for your community. Use today as a fuel to carry forward what you learn, and never forget to engage with your lawmakers. Let us hear your voices so together we can build solutions. Again, I know I am singing to the choir in this room, and you significantly either care about this issue, have been impacted by this issue with your family or yourself. But you know what they say about the choir? They absolutely get the congregation going when it comes to not just listening to the pastor, but feeding their soul in a moment where we are all in despair given what's happening in this country. And it's going to take rooms like this, conversations like this, partnerships to ensure that we are connecting to as many people as possible, not just in our neighborhoods, but across the city of Philadelphia, and ensuring that our voices are heard in halls of power. So again, we can move the needle on investing in our communities to reverse this trend of cancer, particularly as it relates to Black and brown communities. As I said, I've watched it up close. I've experienced the heartache when we see our loved ones losing their lives to this issue. So that only means that our work is not done. We absolutely have to do more, and you all are standing in that gap for so many people that don't have those resources. So again, thank you for having me. I look forward to the work that we're going to be able to do together, and let's make sure this is not the only time we're having a conversation about reversing this trend of cancer in our communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Representative Cephas. I can see why you're so effective. When is the next election for you? Yes, ma'am. I want you to say.
I didn't know we can get political, but that's all right. I'm actually just leaving this morning, 8:30 event with Senator Vincent Hughes. Anybody know Senator Vincent Hughes? Fantastic. He had a breakfast this morning where he featured Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Does anybody know Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett? Is anybody watching what she is going through down in Texas? Are we seeing that they are looking to draw her out of her district? Luckily, she is saved this year, which is one of the reasons why she talked this morning about why this election is important now more than ever. Has anybody voted yet? Because you have to have the ability to vote every single day now with the mail-in ballots. All right, you all are making me nervous, but y'all just look like y'all are good old-fashioned people that like to actually go to the polls. Not that we don't trust the system, but, you know, we've been here before if you think of the 1960s. But I say that to say this election is critical now more than ever. And I firmly have to, you know, be intentional about saying every single election matters, because there is a particular party that pays attention to the school board, to the Senate. And it's unfortunate that the other party tends to catch up when it's too late. And when I say it's too late, when we look at November 1st and SNAP benefits being lost, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, when we talk about LAHEAP now not being able to run until the month of December because of what is happening down in Washington, D.C., that is a direct result of our voting patterns every 6 months. Now, why this election matters? Because it's about our courts. And I always say that you will see a judge before you see a president. You almost might see a judge before you see your congressperson, which is why that matters, to ensure that our courts are reflective of this room and are reflective of our city, are reflective of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But it's not just our local courts that are on the ballot. It is our Supreme Courts that are on the ballot. And the Supreme Courts determine the district redistricting maps when it comes to Congress, but also when it comes to our seats. So as much as we love Speaker Joanna McClinton, without the courts, we would not have no speaker who was drawing fair and accessible maps versus the maps that Florida is drawing, versus the maps that Texas is drawing. And this court also saved the issue of education. When we talk about education being underfunded, it took, for some reason, the Commonwealth Court 300 pages to determine that some of our school districts are being underfunded. But the one party didn't, you know, go against that judgment because they knew they were going to a Supreme Court that supports equitable access to education. When it comes to our reproductive freedom, there is a court case literally in front of the Supreme Court right now that protects that access. When we talk about voting rights, when we talk about access to the voting ballot, when we talk about fighting back all that is happening down in Washington, D.C., it is our Supreme Court that is fighting that battle. And let's be clear, they're not sending in ICE and the National Guard because of our public safety. I don't know the last time Donald Trump cared about our public safety. And last time we checked, when you looked at the statistics, our criminal activity is actually going down in the city of Philadelphia, and it's actually going down across the country, particularly in the Black and brown communities. But for some reason, he's sending them in here. And what he's trying to do is create an occupied state. And it's not an occupied state for this election, it's an occupied state for the 2026 midterms. So we have to be diligent in every single election cycle, because this is a setup not just for, again, 2026. This is a setup for 2028. So we have to, again, stay diligent, be reminded that every 6 months there is an election on the line, and November matters now more than ever. So need you to make sure you get out to vote, but I feel like, again, I'm singing to that choir again, but we have to make sure we get out to the congregation so that congregation understands what is at stake here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and what is at stake for in this country. So thank you for letting me take the time.
I know churches still have to be careful about endorsements of political candidates and where they stand, but I'm just saying. All right, enough of that. I want to remind everyone, in your packets, there's a pre-survey. If you could please fill those out, pre-program survey, please fill those out. And at the end of the program, you can fill out the post-survey and post-conference survey also. We use these things in order to determine how we're doing, make sure we're reaching the target mark that you want in terms of what we're doing. Remember, this is a conversation for all of us about what's happening as far as, in this case, lung cancer. And so it's very important that we're all on the same page when we're talking about this. Also, at the end of today's program, we're going to have a special, when Mr. Saab comes up and talks, we'll find that we have a special edition for this program, and he'll go into more detail for us about that. But to get things start off for us, there's one thing when docs like me talk to patients. Sometimes patients, they may listen to what we say, but when a patient says something, they hear what is being said. So part of our programs, we like to start off with what the patient is telling us about. And so in that regard, we've put the pressure upon someone who has the strength in order to carry us through and get us started, and that's Ms. Donna Thompson. Ms. Thompson is a 10-year survivor of early non-small cell lung cancer. She is a lung force hero with the American Lung Association, which means that Donna is recognized as a thought leader who shares her story to inspire hope, reduce stigma, and elevate survivor voices. More importantly, though, Ms. Thompson is noted for her empathy, her leadership, and her strategic insight. In her spare time, which I don't understand where she finds it, she finds strength literally and emotionally through fitness training, long walks, and time near the ocean. You can never go wrong if you're getting time by the ocean. For Donna, movement is medicine and advocacy is calling rooted. It is a calling rooted in compassion and resilience. I give you Ms. Donna Thompson, who's going to give us a patient story.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank everyone for being here, specifically my family and friends, and that friend that surprised me and took a 5-hour drive this morning with her husband. I really appreciate everyone for coming out. I will tell you that my journey with lung cancer started September 2015 with a trip to the ER. I had chest pains for a little while. I actually had been diagnosed with diabetes a year earlier, so I was working on taking care of that. By the way, I did kick that, and I haven't been on medication since 2016, so it is possible to reverse diabetes. But that's what sent me to the ER. ER visit, I'm 45 years old, so if you have chest pains, you know what that means. EKG, chest x-ray, all of it. And so they sent me home the next day. A doctor, I guess a radiologist, came in and reread the reports and looked at the photos and called me and said, there's a mass in your lung, go see a doctor right away. And that was on a Saturday, and I'll never forget that day because I was out to dinner with one of my sisters, and she looked at me and she was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. And for some reason at that moment, when they said that, I kind of knew where we were going. Nonetheless, the next 5 weeks, testing, all types of, you had a biopsy, PET scan, the whole gamut. And I recognize that's not everyone's story. So for me, discovery and diagnosis took 5 weeks. Again, that is no one's story. Yesterday, someone asked me in an interview here, how did you get approval for all of those tests? Because I did not meet any screening criteria. I did not meet any of the risks for lung cancer. But yet, I said it was an act of God. Nothing was held back. And so I get these tests. I'm at work. I get the phone call, and I'll never forget his voice. The test did show you have non-small cell, actually said adenocarcinoma, non-small cell lung cancer. And I finished my work day. I left, got in my car, and I cried. And from that moment, that's the day I became a survivor, October the 23rd, 2015. And so exactly 10 years ago. And I just remember thinking, what next, God? Like, what's going on? And, I go through the testing. And so interesting enough, it was found that the type of tumor I had was spread through air spaces and not lymph nodes. And so I ended up having surgery. So today, so that day I had the top right upper lobe of my right lung removed. And so I go on for 5 years, and the cancer returns. This is the part where listening to your body, being your own advocate, my boss calls me a professional patient. And because I'm so involved in it, because I never went 6 years without the cancer returning. The cancer had returned 2 years earlier. And I never missed a scan, I never missed an appointment, but the radiologist and the oncologist missed the tumor growing in my lung for 2 years. And so I remember thinking that day, I was shocked because at that point, I had decided, you know, one and done. My cancer lasted 5 weeks, so where do I belong? Where do I fit in? And come to find out, the cancer had been growing. So I have a second surgery to remove another part of my lung. It's important to also note that the early stage, you know, because it was stage 2, I qualified for surgery. And so the standard of care is removing the cancer, follow-up chemotherapy. The second time in 2022, they did biomarker testing, and it was found that I had EGFR positive exon 19. The doctors were like, this is great, it's treatable, except I can't take it. I'm allergic to it. I'm allergic to it so bad that it nearly killed me this year trying to take it. And the medication is great. It works for people. My body just did not take it. And so the cancer returned again for the 3rd time last year. And during this time period, what I realized is every time I've tried to have chemotherapy, it didn't work. Every time I've tried to take medication, it didn't work. You know, I couldn't take it. My body rejected it. But I know all of this because I'm such an active participant in my health care. I do not go to the doctor's office and sit there and wait for them to tell me. I come informed. I bring questions. I do my own research. I mean, we have Google, right? Let it work for something. You know, even if it's inaccurate information, challenge your doctor with the Google information. Because of that, I was the person that discovered the cancer return in 2022 because I read those test results. The doctor called me days later. Oh my goodness, look what we found. And so because of that, I'm standing here today. I qualified for a second surgery. And just to kind of fast forward, when I'm having, you know, when I'm speaking at these events, for me, it's 2 things. Look at me. I'm living with cancer for 10 years. I'm in the best shape of my life, the best health. Cancer, you know, my friend Jamie said yesterday about like how you take your life back with a cancer diagnosis. It gave me so much more than it ever took from me, and that's because I made a decision that that's how I was going to live. And so sharing my story, it's not for me, it's don't be afraid of the healthcare system. If you go in there armed, go in there with your questions, you know, we have this holistic versus medication. There's room for both, right? There's prayer, there's Jesus, and therapy. I have all of them. And I'm still going to take this medication if it's going to save my life. And I think that's what we need to do. Listen to your bodies. Do something about it. I would say that this year, I did not think I would survive this year. It was the hardest year of my life. Because I kept trying to take medication that my body did not like. I took it like 3 times. It attacked my kidneys. I went into kidney failure. I was on dialysis for 4 months. I did not think I was going to survive. It was way more traumatic than cancer ever was for me. So do not be, I say all that to say 2 things. Cancer is not the worst thing that can happen to us. The important part is getting it early, right? So you do that by listening to your body and then doing something. That's all I can say. Listen to your body, do something about it. If you have lungs, you can get lung cancer, period. And I think that's all I have to say today. I think that's enough. Thank you so much.
You know, Donna, I would point out you may be in the best shape of your body, but your life, but you're looking good, girl. You're looking good. I just want to know. Moving into shifting gears just a little bit, we're going to kind of get into a discussion, which may seem like it's in the weeds, but I think you'll see the relevance is it for us. I'm going to first bring up Mr. Howard Mosby. Mr. Mosby earned his Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in Finance from Georgia State University, then completed the University of North Carolina School of Public Health Management Academy. He's also a graduate of the Fleming Leadership Institute and was given the Arthur S. Fleming Award. You know, you're full of politicians and lawyers in here today, so I don't know if we ever get the microphone back, and I apologize to all of you. But for 8 terms, Mr. Mosby represented the 83rd District in Georgia State House of Representatives. He's also one of the founding members of HEAL Collaborative and serves as both the corporate treasurer and the interim chief operating officer. Mr. Mosley, if you'll come up here and have a seat. Our second person we're going to have on this, it's going to be kind of a panel, but they're going to have a discussion, and we're going to have the opportunity to listen to two guys talking about something. Other person is Mr. Thomas Johnson. Excuse me, Mr. Thomas Johnson. Mr. Johnson is a native of one of the greatest places you could ever possibly be from. That would, of course, be the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. He didn't go to the public schools like I did, but that's all right. We won't hold that against him. He's a graduate of Tufts University. He then found reason and attended the Mecca for law school. You know where the Mecca is, of course, Howard University. So he went to Howard University Law School. He brings 3 decades of leadership in healthcare, nonprofit association management. He is the past president and CEO of Medicaid Health Plans of America and the D.C. Hospital Association. He's also past CEO of the D.C. Medical Society. Currently, he is the executive director of ASAP 340B, and this stands for the Alliance to Save America's 340B programs, a national coalition of patient advocates, community health centers, providers, and biopharmaceutical leaders. So come on up here for this, Mr. Johnson. But the question, come on up, sir. As he comes up, you may be asking yourselves, what is a 340B and why does it matter to me? And so I'm going to tell you that after this discussion, you will know all about it. Have a seat. So you guys, oh, come on, presentation. I'm sorry. All right. Can't do a Howard man like that. Don't hold that against.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I want to thank the Hill Collaborative for inviting me to this event. I think this is the fourth event this year that I've had a chance to give this type of presentation to events that they've held around the country. And I think I got 2 more coming up, right? The Heal Collaborative is a member of our coalition, and they've been very, very active on this issue. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about what's happening with this program, tell you what it is if you have not heard of it before, because there are a lot of people that have never heard of this program. But it's a very, very important program, and unfortunately, as things go, with little oversight, oftentimes comes abuse. And so we're going to get into some details about the program. First off, this is our coalition. We started off with 17 members in April of 2023. We're up to 39 members of our coalition, including the Hill Collaborative. As you can see, we have a diverse number of groups representing different interests at the national level around the country, and they all recognize both the importance of this program, and they also have strong concerns about what's been happening under this program, the need for comprehensive reform at the federal level. So Congress created this program over 30 years ago to help low-income and other vulnerable patients access more affordable medicines. Community health centers and other safety net providers rely on this program to serve their communities, but some entities participating in the program have taken advantage of the lack of clarity at the expense of the patients that it's meant to serve. And the well-being of communities served by our country's healthcare safety net, they're being threatened by some of these practices that are taking place. So, just to give you an idea of what this program is, and I think generally, even though it seems complicated, it's actually quite simple. A pharmaceutical company, if they want to participate in a public program, Medicaid, Medicare, they have to sign an agreement with the government saying that they are going to provide certain types of entities, that includes hospitals, that includes clinics, that includes other types of covered entities. They have to provide a discounted drug price to that entity if they want to participate in a public program. Right now, the discount averages 59% of the cost of the drug. So that is a significant discount that a hospital or a clinic is acquiring the drug for. In addition, they are allowed to keep the 41% after you apply the discount. So that works out for the hospital, that works out for the clinic. It should work out for the patient. But I'm going to get into a little bit of detail of why that might not be taking place. But overall, it provides money for these entities to help out with their resources and also provide them to acquire a drug at a discount. Unfortunately, this is what's happening now. Unfortunately, hospitals are acquiring that drug at a discount, and they are working with PBMs to resell that drug at 5 to 10 times the cost of what they acquired. Okay? 5 to 10 times of what they acquired the drug for. They are billing Medicaid, Medicare, and your private insurance company the difference. And in some cases, they are sending you a copay also to collect more money from a drug that they acquired at a discount. That's the abuse that is taking place right now with this program. And that's why our coalition primarily has come together, because this is supposed to be a program that's supposed to help the underserved. So we talk about how the program is not working as intended, and these are just some things that are taking place under the program. I'm going to talk about hospitals a lot, because hospitals actually are acquiring these drugs. Of the 100% of drugs acquired under this program, hospitals account for 87% of that spend. The next highest category are clinics, and they're at 5%. $66.3 billion were purchased, drugs were purchased under this program in 2023. This is the second largest prescription drug program in the country, only exceeded by Medicare Part D. And at this rate, because it's been increasing 20% each year, it will be the largest such program in the country. There's differing standards of accountability with regards to this program, unfortunately. And there's a big reason why. The community health center under this program, because they are a federal grantee, they are required to report how grant funds and 340B savings are used. So they actually show what they acquired the drug for and how they're being used. They reinvest those savings back into patient care, and they have an income-based sliding fee schedule for patient drug copays. Now let me tell you how hospitals are treated under this program. Because they are not federal grantees, they qualify because they're DSH hospitals, disproportionate share hospitals. There is no federal requirement for them to report on how those savings are used. So you know what we've heard? We've heard 340B money spent on Super Bowl ads. We've heard 340B money spent on the salary of a football coach. We've heard 340B money spent on capital improvements, which is a very large and vague term, including fountains, new buildings, those types of things. And they do not have to report on any of this. In addition, there is no obligation to reinvest those savings into patient care. They are also required to provide charity care, but 2/3 of DSH hospitals were below the national average on 2.5% of operating costs. And you can see how this is outlined right here, comparing 340B hospitals to nonprofit hospitals and for-profit hospitals and what they spend on charity care. Now, we're talking about cancer this morning. 5 of the 10 drugs, top 10 drugs that are used in this program are cancer-related drugs. You can see what's happening in the area of cancer care. 340B hospitals tend to use higher cost cancer drugs, resulting in larger profit margins. Remember what I talked about when I said they're acquiring this drug at a discount and then they're reselling it. So the more expensive the drug, the more profit they're making. And in some cases, revenues were over 10 times higher than at non-340B hospitals. In addition, in North Carolina alone, 340B hospitals charge state employees, through a report that the state of North Carolina funded, they charge state employees more than 5 times their cost for cancer drugs, which is an 84.8% markup. Now think about all this when we're talking about healthcare. Think about the fact that they're not required to spend money on healthcare. Think about the fact that this country just passed major cuts in Medicaid, and hospitals are allowed to use this money not on healthcare, but other things they want to use it for. This really calls for accountability with regards to the 340B program. You will see from one of the handout that we have that in one case, there was a woman, Virginia King, a state worker. The drug price was $2,700. The hospital bill to the insurer, that markup I was talking about, was $22,700 for that drug. The insurer paid $10,000, and she was sent a bill for $2,500 for a $2,700 acquisition of that drug. So there has been discussion about what to do about a lot of these things. This is just an outline of some of the activity that's taken place in Washington, and I'm happy to say that on Thursday, even though it was during the fact that government was closed, which is, I don't understand, but the Senate actually had a hearing on this issue. And I'm happy to say that it seemed like both Republicans and Democrats seemed to agree that there needed to be some transparency in this program. That is a huge start towards getting more accountability for what's been happening under this program. Other groups, health equity groups, wrote a letter in December of 2024 to 6 senators that are working on this issue, calling for reform as well. And look at the last sentence over there. Meaningful 340B reform must be comprehensive and thoroughly addressed all the program shortcomings from transparency and accountability. That's the main message that we're trying to get across. And you can see some of the groups that are listed: blackdoctor.org, NAACP, the National Council for Negro Women, Black Women's Health Imperative, a number of groups that are really focused on healthcare. So these are kind of just our main principles that we're trying to push for with a comprehensive approach. Insured savings are used to help patients and true safety net providers. You do not even know, number one, if you're a 340B patient, and you definitely do not know if you're getting any savings from being a 340B patient. 2, prevent abuse by middlemen. PBMs in 2023 brought in $2.5 billion from this program, spreading the price of those drugs. And 3, have some transparency so we can verify that the program is actually working. Thank you.
All right, I am going to be Wayne Tuckson. You know, it's hard to find good help, so we're still looking. Let me just say that. No. Oh, he's done a great job for us. All right, so we heard so thank you, Thomas, for doing that. This has been awesome. This is information that the community needs to hear. So I grew up in healthcare. We love acronyms in healthcare. So PBMs, what is a PBM and what does it mean in this particular space here?
A PBM is an entity that essentially works with, in most cases, a health insurance company or a pharmacy that helps set and control the price of a drug. Some PBMs are owned by health insurance companies, some are owned by large pharmacy companies, but they act as a middleman to help set and control the benefit of that pharmacy. They essentially manage the benefit. And they have, over the past, I would say 10 to 15 years, been increasingly involved with this program.
So they, in essence, stand in the middle between, so I have the prescription, the hospital is asking that I get this prescription from this particular pharmacy. This entity sits in the middle between that pharmacy and me, and they skim some money off the top. That's what I heard you say.
That's exactly right.
And that drives up your cost or takes away from that benefit, actually, for the individuals. I'm also a CPA, so I understand the funds flow of this. However, it can get a little tricky. So the pharmaceutical companies, that's $66 billion. How much of that is federally funded money?
Actually, none of it is.
Say it again, because I don't know if they heard you.
Actually, none of it is.
None of this is federal money.
No. So remember I said at the beginning that a manufacturer contracts with entities. Probably the reason why we don't have data on this program is because there are no appropriations. This is just an agreement between the pharmaceutical company and the covered entity. The only place the government is involved is oversight through HRSA. But that $66 billion I was talking about, none of that is government money.
So since the government is overseeing this program, then I'm assuming that they're doing everything possible to make sure these dollars are being spent correctly. Why is HRSA falling down on the job in this space?
HRSA has indicated, number one, that they do not have the statutory authority to investigate in a number of areas where reports like I talked about have come up. 2, HRSA has, I think, before the bill was passed, I think they had 20 employees in one office called the Office of Pharmacy Affairs that actually was providing oversight over a $66 billion program. So they have a lack of resources. They do audit some entities from time to time, but I mean, how much can you do with 20 people?
On number of entities that they would have to go out and actually go out and audit.
Absolutely. You're talking about auditing covered entities. You're talking about auditing potentially the contract pharmacies that are involved with the program, they don't have the resources.
So this really, so for this audience here, so we don't know whether or not we're a 340B patient or not. So let's assume that I'm a 340B patient. And in this particular scenario that you put on the screen where the hospital bought the drug for $2,700, they sold it for $22,000 to the insurance company. Now the insurance company could be Medicaid. So now Medicaid is paying for this benefit that has been provided by the industry using your tax dollars?
That's correct.
Is that what's happening?
That's right. And the other thing that's happening is that if a drug is acquired through the 340B program and billed to Medicaid, you cannot collect the rebate that's associated with that drug. So reports have shown that states and the federal government are losing money when you see hospitals using this as essentially a profit center for them.
You know, all of this is amazing to me. And I know all of you, well, some of you might have questions on this, so I'll be glad to take questions from the audience. I just have one other issue here that I want to kind of get across. So we know that states, you and I, we were in Michigan together. We've done Texas together, Illinois, different places. But this is a federal program. And we also know in Pennsylvania, in the next legislative session, there is a bill that's coming up to actually deal with this. So if this is a federal issue, why are these states stepping in? And is that good for the person? Is that good for the public or not?
I think it's always good for the public, whether you're at the state level or at the federal level, to shine a light on the black box that's keeping data from getting out to the public. Now, we are looking for a federal solution because it is a federal program, but states are getting more and more involved and wanting to see some transparency from 340B entities. You know, ideally, what would happen is that hospitals would be subject to the same types of reporting requirements that clinics are subject to. Hospitals would have to apply that same type of sliding fee scale that clinics do, so that you don't see a situation like Virginia King's getting a $2,500 bill for a drug that was acquired for $2,700. You know, let's see some consistency with regards to requirements under the program. And, you know, the clinics are one of our major partners, and they are calling for that. They are the ones that really focus on that issue in terms of having a sliding scale so that you don't see instances like what Virginia King went through.
That is awesome. Awesome. Any questions from the audience? Buttons.
How do we know what hospitals are included in the 340B drug program? And is it only the medication that you receive while you're an inpatient, or is it also medication outpatient?
It's an outpatient program, so it's for those who are outpatients. You can go to a number of sources to find out what hospitals are 340B. You can go to HRSA website. There's a group called Air 340B. You can go to their website as well. That's actually probably easier to navigate. You can also go to the Pioneer Institute. They've got a great tool actually breaking down a lot of things about hospitals in each state, but that information is readily available from any one of those sources.
That is awesome. Any other questions?
Oh.
Concerns? Oh, I'm sorry.
So in cases like Virginia King, where she was treating at a 340B facility or getting treatment in the 340B program, had she known that that was what was going on, could she call somebody or email or reach out to someone to say, hey, I know you're overcharging me for this because it's 340B, or do we as patients have any recourse if we find out that we're a 340B patient to maybe push back if we are getting high copays on our medication?
I'd say a couple things. Number one, any patient, I think, should become more familiar with this program and simply ask the intake person, am I a 340B patient? Is this a 340B facility? Ask that question. Now, the other thing that has to happen, frankly, is that people need to speak to their representatives and call for comprehensive reform. Because I can tell you, and Wayne and I were just talking about something years ago that I had to deal with when I was younger. The hospitals around the country, including in Pennsylvania, they do not want any changes. They don't want any transparency. They don't want any clarity in the statute. They don't want any accountability. They want to keep things as is. Okay? So, you know, when the chair of the Senate Health Committee says 340B is starting to become part of earnings calls for hospital systems, we're talking about a program that's supposed to be for the underserved. And there are many other issues I didn't even cover. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal talked about the fact that some of these hospital systems, this is one other practice they're engaging in. They're closing facilities in underserved areas. They're opening facilities in affluent areas. And they are taking that 340B discount, which is supposed to be for the underserved, and they're applying it to that facility in an affluent area. That's completely against the scope and nature of the program. But that's another practice that hospitals are engaged in. And, you know, the American Cancer Society, Community Oncology Alliance, there are many groups that have written studies about some of these practices.
Oh, that was awesome. Let's give Thomas a hand.
Thank you.
We know this was a heavy piece, but it's also an important cog in the wheel. When you're going through your healthcare journey, you need to know what all tools are available to you in order to access information and care for your particular state. And so what we're doing today is making sure that you understand the policy implications of everything that happens. Let me tell you this real quickly. There is absolutely nothing that's going on in your life that's not affected by policy. And you had a policy making here earlier today. Right. These individuals are being discussed in places where you are not. And so you have to make sure that your voice is there, and you need to understand the issues enough to be able to raise your voice in these spaces. And we're giving you the information today to be able to do that. So thank you very much for that. And I'll turn this back over to Dr. Tuckson.
I asked a rhetorical question, what is a 340B? We now know. And what does it mean to us? I think we now have that answer also. Thank you very much, Mosey and Mr. Johnson. Moving on, we're going to change gears just slightly. We're going to bring up Mr. William Saab. He is has an associate degree in applied sciences and healthcare management from Delaware County Community College. He has extensive prior experience as a patient navigator at the Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Jefferson Health in Philadelphia, and now works as a practice supervisor in thoracic surgery and lung cancer screening at Jefferson Torresdale Hospital. His goal has been to remove barriers, provide comfort, and make each patient and caregiver feel supported and heard. In that light, Mr. Saab will sob. I don't know why. Please tell me. Saab, I apologize, sir. I don't. You don't look Swedish. It will enlighten us about lung cancer screening and the role of patient navigator. Please join.
Right. All good. Thank you, brother. Good morning, everyone. First, I just want to thank the Hill Collaborative for inviting me here today. Last night, just looking at all you beautiful people, and this is awesome. This is actually an answer to I always wanted to be proud and talk to everybody about, you know, the disparities in healthcare and like how to be an advocate, not for yourself, but who to reach out to, healthcare system. Oh, yes, ma'am. How's that? Is that better? Sometimes I'm too loud, so that's why I was trying to back up, but thank you, Dr. Tuxton. Appreciate you. How's that? So, with further ado, let me get started. So, again, my name is William Sabb. I am the clinic, have many roles at Jefferson. Right now, I'm the practice supervisor at a thoracic surgery in Jefferson, Torresdale Hospital in Northeast Philly. I just got that role about 9 months ago. I was promoted. Before that, I was the lung cancer clinic coordinator for Jefferson Center City and also South New Jersey. So anyone that was ever diagnosed with lung cancer and that went to Center City or went to Methodist Hospital or hospitals in New Jersey, you might have just spoke with me, came through me, or I helped direct you in which way to go. With that program, just what I learned from that program was just phenomenal. There's so many people who don't really understand how healthcare goes, not just the system, but what to do in your own health, as far as not just advocacy, but just like navigating everything. What we talk about in healthcare literacy and things of that nature. And that's one reason why I'm up here today, really discuss healthcare literacy and what does that mean. How well do one know their health care? How well do someone know their health policy, their insurance plan? Do they know, do they have preventative screenings are readily available? Do you have a copay? Is it fully covered? Things of that nature. One thing I will say, you pay for your insurance, whether you think you do or not, one way or another. You might not have a deductible. You paying somehow. These people work for you as a consumer. Please call your insurance and get to know your plan. It's imperative that you do, especially in this world, in this climate, the way everything's going on and the constant change in healthcare. The greatest thing you can do is make informed decisions about your life. You know, we talk about everything. We go grocery shopping, what kind of car we want, you know, what kind of paint we're going to pick out when we're trying to remodel our house and things of that nature. But we don't talk about, okay, what plan is best for me when I go see my doctor? How many doctors do I have? How much prescriptions do I take a day? You know, things like that. We just do it. That's what we talked about last night. Just like we don't really question those things, and we need to just do a better job at that. Just taking our life in our own hands. Just be more responsible, because it's your life. You know, this is the only one you get here on this earth, and you're the only one that's going to take care of it. No one else is going to do it for you. So also with that, getting into the segueing into like the patient navigator part of it, you mind if I walk around? Because I have ADHD, so I got to move. So along with just navigating your health care, most folks don't, and Dr. Tuxton and I talked about this earlier, a lot of folks don't know where to go, who to contact, what to do, right? The best thing you can do is just find a point person. If you have a doctor, you see him, you have questions, ask the doctor. The doctor may not know all the answers because they're the doctor. They focus on your health. Talk to the front desk staff. Ask them the question. Like, hey, who can I talk to about this issue outside of my health care? You know, I have these what we call wraparound services in the hospital. It might be a need for transportation that you think, okay, that's silly. I need to be responsible getting back and forth. I don't know how to do that, but I'm not going to say nothing. Say something. Say something to these people, because somebody might know something. They might know, hey, the front desk staff say, I don't deal with that. Well, we have social workers. They might know. So and they'll put you in contact with the social worker. That's one thing that I had to do as a navigator. I was a connector. So I connected all the pieces for a patient. Like, again, wraparound services. You had everything you need coming to Jefferson. Not promoting Jefferson, but just as a navigator, that's what I did. I make sure you could get to all your treatments every day, never miss a beat. Even if you were sick and you call me, well, I don't feel good, I can't make it, let the doctor know. Well, what's going on? Well, you know, I'm tired. I'll give a word of encouragement, pray for folks. Get them in here. Hey, switch the time around. You may have a morning appointment. Because of your cycle, with your chemo cycle, you might be sick that morning after you get chemo and you can't get the radiation because you're sick that morning. Well, can we switch your appointment to the afternoon? I talked to the team about it, sure thing. They said we was trying to get out of here. We had a meeting this morning anyway. We was going to push everybody late. That worked out. But because they said something, we was able to make that transition. So always speak up. It's okay to speak up, If it's a silly question, ask it, because there's no silly questions. What they say, the only silly question is a question not asked, right? So always ask. If it's on your mind, ask. Please ask. Another thing with Mr. Thompson made me angry. Because, that's wild. So just circling back to patient navigation. Another thing you want to do, please be an advocate for others too. Please be encouragement to others. As the Bible say, be a refreshment to others, right? So what you want to do is somebody going through it, or they sick, they cough, they're not getting checked out, say something. Nag them, and please nag them. Don't think you're being a nag, because sometimes that nag is a push. And I say all these things because I had a patient a couple years ago that was scared to get surgery. He had a lung nodule. He just needed surgery. It was small. They were going to take it out, boom. Outpatient. A couple hours in recovery, boom, he's out the door. But he was so scared to get surgery, he never got it. But he never told us. And I had to just keep calling and nag him. I said, one day, dude, what's going on? He was like, well, I really don't want to get the surgery, da-da-da. And he kept avoiding. My mom called me, I'll call you back. So one day, and he finally told me what was happening. And I was like, all right, well, you finally convinced him to come back in to get checked out, but this was half a year later, so he had to get rescanned and everything. Next thing you know, it spread throughout his body. And it was so sad, because when it started off as just, we can take it out, you can go back home, to just that fear. And just open up to that. Like, you have somebody in the healthcare system you can trust. You can let them know, hey, I'm scared. I'm scared with you, because we don't know. Well, we can do this together. And as a patient navigator, that's what I would do, from first diagnosis to survivorship. I would walk a patient through their journey, make sure they had everything, talk to the care teams, doing the tumor boards. And the tumor board is discussion on molecular level for all cancer patients. So it's and it's a multidisciplinary approach. So sometimes you have your primaries that's involved, but you definitely have pulmonologists, have medical oncologists, radiation oncologists, pathologists, and you also have pulmonologists and also in interventional radiology. We have genetics, even though there's no genetic testing for lung cancer. They're still trying to get those the clinical trial folks in there. So genetics are involved, because they want to know. Because they're like, as soon as you find out, we're going to try to see if there's any genetic links to what's going on in your body. So we have all these teams, and we all talk about everybody and how they're going to treat and come up with a care plan. But after every case, the team looks at me and say, Will, what else do you know about the patient? Like, what else can you give me that I can reach to them, like, on a personal level, to get me to understand how I'm going to present our care plan to them? What questions they may have because of the information that you gave me, so I can prepare to answer that and give them all the information they need to make an informed decision about what they want to do. I can't stress enough just like how important it is to speak up. We talk about being an advocate, right? And what does that really mean when you don't know? Just like the example you gave, just like until you tell somebody, here go some seeds, go plant some corn and grow it. But if you don't know the process, what does that look like? So being an advocate, I think about that all the time. What does that mean? Because, hey, go be your own advocate. Speak up. You might say, speak up to who? Right? What should I say to whom? How should I say? Well, if I say it in a way that's going to offend them. I'm from 30 from Jefferson, so you say I'm from the hood, so it's just, you're going to get that, right? What if I offend them? I don't want to offend my doctor, then you're going to look, he's not going to treat me right. And a lot of these doctors, they're not from the area, they graduate, they get jobs, they here working, they care about you because they doctors. Everybody in healthcare do care. It's just, but you can't think about that. To say how it's on your mind, And sometimes with my medical oncologists, what they used to do, When we have folks and it was kind of difficult to talk to, they'll bring me in the room. It was like a translator. Seriously, it really was. Like, well, what they say, like, no, they're not angry. They just talk like that. They're very aggressive in their speech. They had, you know, they have a background. But they don't mean no harm. They're nervous. They're scared. They have fear. You telling them things, you're not telling them any good news. They scared to death. Hear the C word, or I'm going to die. And it's like, no, you might not die. You know, we got something for you. Maybe some clinical trials. We talked last night. Clinical trials, folks were like, oh, I'm not going to be the guinea pig. And I had to tell them, we already did that part. Like, I had to really say it like that. Like, what you mean? I had to really, especially our people, I had to tell them, we already did that part. This got to prove what it is. It's just like we need more people on it to see how this really reacts, because we got something for you. It's targeted towards you. That's the goal. We're not just going to give you anything because you came in with the mindset thinking that, or they just going to give me anything. They don't care. They're going to brush me off. No, we got something for you. You know? And oftentimes I come in the room, they're like, oh, well, you the token. They sent you in the room. But at the end of the day, it was all good, because what it was like I broke that barrier, gave them a sense of trust. And that's what it's about. All your care teams, that's what you have to get. You have to gain a sense of trust with these folks. Again, these folks care about you. They really do have your best interest. And if you have a provider that don't, switch providers. It's okay. Don't be fearful of that, because you pay for this. You are the consumer. If somebody's giving you information that you don't really think is right, get a second opinion. You know, and get a third opinion. Actually, I worked with Jefferson and Temple and Rutgers and Cooper and Fox Chase. We have symposiums every quarter, all together. No one's fighting over patients. I promise you, we don't fight over patients. This is a very heavily saturated healthcare system in this region. We fight over real estate, but we don't fight over patients. And we discuss cases with one another. They all went to school together. They friends. They go to each other's houses. If you switch doctors, if you switch healthcare systems, no one's angry, I promise you. There's enough patients to go around. There's enough cancer to go around. See what Mr. Thompson talked about. There's money. They making money. You good. So don't worry about that either. So just take care of yourself. Ask the questions you need to have. Find the people you need to talk to. And just start mentioning everything. And matter of fact, for folks, we might be preaching to the choir, because the folks that's here, take this home. Tell your loved ones, tell your friends, tell your neighbors about this. If you know your neighbor, you don't see him for a while, a couple of days, go by, something going on, knock on the door. Hey, you all right? You're not being newsy. You care about them. You know, they might open up to you. Well, I had this going on. I thought I'd take some NyQuil and rub it off. That's not even the issue. Get them to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? So guys, thank you very much. There's one other thing. Do I got time? All right, there's one other thing I do want to just circle back to as far as lung cancer screening. If you smoke about a pack a day for 20 years, 20-plus pack smoker, but if you smoke, and if you got a cough, if you got an itch in your chest, if you know your voice don't sound right, sometimes your voice get a little scratchy and you sound a little sexy, and you kind of want to keep that, but you know something wrong, but everybody like your voice because you sound like Method Man or something, listen, go see your doctor. Because this just could be something going on inside that we could address early. It may not be cancer. It could be anything. It could be something in your esophagus. It could be anything. But go see your doctor. Let your doctor know that, hey, I had this for a while. I just want to get checked out. They'll get you a scan. If you qualify for a lung cancer screen, they'll walk you through the process of what that looks like. And we can get you a low-dose CT. We get a preventative care, so we get a preventative scan. And what that is, it's a low-dose CT scan. We try to get it covered through your insurance policy. Sometimes we can with the ever-changing landscape. Sometimes we can't. And to touch on that piggyback, so I told you there's a lot. But to touch on your insurance, make sure you get the right policy for you. I'm going to circle back to that because that's imperative. That's one major thing to healthcare literacy. Know your insurance plan. Please, because I deal with patients every day that call me, well, I got a $400 bill for a lung cancer screen. It should be fully covered. And I ask them, like, hey, what does your plan say about preventative screenings? I don't know. You guys should know. You the hospital. Like, we the end user. It's just like we're going off of what the insurances provide for us for our negotiated price. That's all we do, right? We charge an insurance company. Your policy is between you and your insurance company. We don't know. They're not even allowed to talk to us about it because it's a HIPAA violation. So it's like I can say, hey, I'm calling the Jefferson Hospital. Can we go over this patient policy? They'll say, no. You say that over the phone. I don't know you, man, right? They can get sued for that. So you have to call your insurance company, talk to them directly. And oftentimes, they'll call the facility back. I get a lot of phone calls with somebody on the phone, sound like they shaking their neck. Well, I got my member on the phone. You told them to call to go over their plan. Yes, they're fully covered. I said, this is a recorded line. That's all I need to hear you say, right? And we good. You know, then I know how to address my billing specialist and go through it and make sure all the codes are right so we can take that off there. So, but again, you have to know your insurance policy because I do. Again, I get a lot of patients that say, I don't want to call them. I got to be on the phone forever. They take too long to pick up. You're right. That's why I don't want to call. I'm working. But you're going to get a lot further than I am. So, yeah, that's really it. Yeah. I got more to say, but I'll probably get off tangent because there's a lot to patient navigation. As far as just for the beginning primary care, see your doctor as often as you can. Do your annual follow-ups. If they say get a scan, get blood tests, come back in 3 months, stick to that. Don't brush it off because things could change. Matter of fact, if you're a survivor and you had a surgery and the doctor, we have these things where things fall in category. A procedure will go a certain way. Everything is textbook. All the boxes are checked. You know, we come back 2 week post-op. You look good. You see the x-ray. They might remove a tube. You can breathe. You're fine. Okay, come back in 6 months, right? In the meantime, that 6 months, something don't feel right. Let somebody know because you might need another scan. Something else might have happened, all right? Listen to your body. Please listen to your body. Don't ignore it. Tell your friends and family, neighbors, and loved ones, listen to your body, all right? Just like Jamie did, right? And this is a theme. That's why we all up here talking. It's not really beating a dead horse, but it's trying to keep a stallion alive, all right? Listen to your body, folks. Thank you.
Rather than waiting to the end, Saab has been able to make an arrangement, Mr. Carr, yeah, which I think is an interesting offer. I shouldn't say offer, it makes it sound like this is late night TV, but he's got an interesting proposition for us. Please.
I want to get free. Oh, and folks, for all those who have a packet today, again, if you are a smoker, please fill out a lung cancer screening form that's in the packet, all right? What I talked to my team, and my team is Jefferson Enterprise, so Abington, and Einstein, Center City, South Philly, Northeast, Jersey. What I came here to do today is just anyone that qualifies for a scan, fill that form out, and also like put at the top right corner like what section of the city that you live in, because there's a Jefferson facility near you, and there's lung cancer screening programs in each facility. And so what we're going to do is like we're going to reach out to, I'm going to get your form to the right team, and they're going to reach out to you to set up a lung cancer screening. And that's an appointment with our nurse practitioners. They'll go over shared decision-making options with you. They'll talk about, tobacco cessation and things like that. But they also put in an order for the low-dose CAT scan. And with that CAT scan, they will also follow up. So when the results come in, those nurses will call you. So you don't have to make a follow-up appointment or wait till the doctor see it, things like that. They'll get the notification that the results in. They'll talk to the radiologist about it, and they'll call you directly with results and plan decision making with that and next steps. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saab. Yesterday, some people had some problem with filling out the form, so at the end of the program, see him so we can get the forms filled out appropriately. And again, I want to remind you that all of our speakers will be available for question and answer after they've finished all of their presentations. Our next speaker is Ms. Bridget Marley. Ms. Marley earned her bachelor's degree in public health from East Stroudsburg University and her master's degree in public health from Westchester University of Pennsylvania. She is currently the tobacco treatment and wellness coordinator for Philadelphia Department of Public Health. Ms. Marley is passionate about creating healthier, more equitable futures for the residents of Philadelphia. Today, she'll be speaking to us about smoking cessation, providing support and resources to assist patients quitting smoking. Ms. Marley.
It always sounds so official when we do that, and I promise I'm not that formal. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bridget. I use she, her pronouns. I have my notes on the slides in front of me, so forgive me if I'm looking down today. Again, I am the Tobacco Treatment and Wellness Coordinator with Philadelphia's Department of Public Health. In the back, I have my colleague, Renelle Nemschik, and she also provides tobacco use disorder treatment services with me and our boss at the city health centers. So we see patients every day. We talk to them every day about quitting smoking. So I want to make sure that we're getting on level footing about tobacco and tobacco use within the city before we get into treatment resources and treatment options for everyone. Does that sound okay with us today? All right, let's do it. So we work in the chronic disease and injury prevention team. Our primary focus is to make healthy choices where each people live, work, learn, worship, shop, and live. We focus on healthy eating. We focus on preventing injury, physical activity, tobacco control, and reducing violence. Our goal as a department is to reduce the chronic disease burden of the city of Philadelphia. So with that, why this all matters is even if you're not someone who uses tobacco products, there is a chance that you know someone. It's 1 in 4 Philadelphians use tobacco products. So, the likelihood that we know someone is very high. And the likelihood that we're impacted, even if we're standing at the bus stop waiting for someone, there's always someone smoking with you at the bus stop, right? So we are still impacted. And even if it doesn't affect us specifically, it affects our community. And tobacco is the #1 cause of preventable death in the United States. The #1 cause of preventable death, meaning that if we don't pick up those cigarettes, we can prevent ourselves from dying. It's our one preventable death cause, okay? There's lots of information on these slides. I'm not gonna go over everything. You don't have to read everything either. They'll be available and you all can have access to them, okay? This is a nice visual. For Philadelphians, heart disease, cancer, and cardiovascular disease are among the leading underlying causes of death, okay? This is a list of everything that we have, our top causes of death from the years 2013 to 2023. And you'll see the top 3 that remain supreme, aside from that the black COVID-19, obviously that took precedence. But it's heart disease, cancer, and cerebrovascular disease, chronic lower respiratory disease, diabetes, drug overdose, sepsis, chronic disease, kidney disease, influenza, pneumonia, and unintentional injury, okay? So what is tobacco use disorder? First, I want to talk about nicotine. Nicotine is a highly addictive chemical compound. It is a stimulant. It operates similar to caffeine. So our cups of coffee or our diet, Coca-Colas in the morning, it operates in the same way. It is found in tobacco and vaping products. It's also found in nicotine replacement therapies, which I'll talk about soon. And nicotine is absorbed very quickly in our bloodstream. Does anyone have any idea or a guess of how quickly from our inhale that the nicotine reaches our bloodstream? Less than 10 seconds, it reaches our brain, in less than 10 seconds, okay? So when people say that they're really craving that cigarette and the second that they light it, they're feeling better and they're a little less crabby, it's because it takes less than 10 seconds for it to reach our brain, okay? This fast delivery is a key factor. Everything of a cigarette is chemically engineered and designed to get people hooked and get people seeking more. The rate that absorption goes to our brain, it is designed chemically by really smart people. And if those really smart people put their, powers into some other things, we could do a whole lot better with the world, right? So nicotine is used, obviously, by consuming, inhaling smoke from cigars, cigarettes, tobacco pipes, even water pipes like hookah pipes. It still has tobacco in them. A lot of people have a misconception that hookah pipes are not dangerous or just as bad for them, but they are just as harmful. The smoke can be inhaled through a vaping device that is really popular amongst our youth right now, especially. And we know that it can be absorbed through our mucous membranes in our mouth, which is why we use nicotine replacement therapy to do that. But you'll also see that in chewing tobacco when they pack it in their lip. It's getting absorbed through the mucous membranes in our cheeks. And so we'll talk about that again when it comes up later. Nicotine activates the brain's reward system, so it binds to the receptors in our brain, releasing dopamine, which is our feeling good chemical hormone, right? We love dopamine, we're all dopamine seekers, which is why we like when things activate those dopamine receptors in our brain. The short-term effects of nicotine on our body, it increases our heart rate, it increases our blood pressure and our blood flow, and it also causes stress on our cardiovascular system. There's a lot of misconception that smoking actually calms people down when they are stressed out, but in fact it does the opposite. It stresses our body out by increasing our heart rate, increasing our blood pressure, and it makes it worse on our body. It makes the stress harder on our body. What actually is kind of happening, and Renelle and I are really excited, we're doing a mindfulness meditation training coming up for people who want to quit smoking. And I've used this in my practice for quite some time. What's happening is your breath work of your deep breaths is actually calming you down more so than the cigarette is. So it's important to note that some of the draws to nicotine is that it increases alertness, it increases concentration, it improves that concentration and our focus, and that temporary feeling of well-being is that dopamine release in our body. It's not necessarily from the cigarette, okay? Nicotine is the primary driver of addiction in the cigarette. There's over 7,000 chemicals inside of a cigarette. Listen, we all know they're dangerous. We all know they're bad for them. Bad for us. I don't need to sit here and tell you that, right? There's 7,000 chemicals that the second that cigarette is lit that we are inhaling if we are a user, if someone is using around us, or if we're going into a home or a car where there is smoking happening, we're still getting those effects, even if we are not the ones consuming that cigarette, okay? And while it is the primary driver of addiction is nicotine, the serious health harms from tobacco use are caused by those thousands of chemicals and that combustion that happens inside of the tobacco, not necessarily the nicotine itself. Some long-term effects are cardiovascular disease, cancer, addiction, withdrawal, lung cancer, right? And other health problems. There's a vastness of effects of nicotine use long-term on our body. There's really long-term serious effects. So with this, nicotine use creates both a physiological and a behavioral addiction. We call it a dual addiction, meaning that we can give you nicotine replacement therapy so that your brain is calm and it's not craving that nicotine anymore, but people are still missing that hand-to-mouth motion of the cigarette, or they're missing their behavior. So if they're in a car driving their car to work every day and they always have a cigarette in their mouth, well, they get in that car and their brain's not necessarily craving that cigarette anymore, but their hand feels naked and they're missing that part of them. So what we do a lot of time in tobacco use disorder treatment appointments, like meeting with a quitline coach or any sort of wellness coach, we work on those behavioral addictions. So we give you nicotine to keep your brain calm, that we can work on the behavior addictions. And then once we work on behavior modification of trying to figure out if you can, hold a stress ball or do something else in the car while you're driving instead of having that cigarette, then we can work on lowering the nicotine dose over a long period of time. So this is kind of the cycle of addiction, and it's kind of irrelevant, but I like to touch on it anyway. So nicotine enters our body and becomes absorbed in under 10 seconds. The dopamine is released. The feelings of pleasure, relaxation, and alertness are creating that positive reinforcement in our brain and our body. Over time, the brain adjusts and more nicotine is needed to achieve that same effect. So then we smoke more, and that's how you find people smoking 1 to 2 cigarettes a day, increasing that over time to end up being a pack and a half. I have a couple patients that smoke about 2 packs of cigarettes a day, which first of all, very expensive habit. We'll touch on that in a second. But without nicotine, our body experiences discomfort. We experience irritability, we experience anxiety and restlessness, which are powerful drivers of continued use. And then those those uses and those urges create our nicotine use again, and it becomes a collaborative effect with, our behavior cues like stress, boredom, and some social triggers. And this loop just continues over and over and over again until we want to jump off. This cycle is not different from any other substance. Arguably, it could be, a gaming addiction or a gambling addiction or any of those kinds of things. This cycle is the same for all of that. This shows a difference between when someone is wanting to quit smoking, using nicotine replacement therapy as opposed to quitting what we call cold turkey, which is not using any nicotine replacement therapy. And what this is showing is that with nicotine use disorder, those red spikes are less stress in our body over long periods of time, as opposed to trying to quit without nicotine replacement therapy. You see a lot more higher stress peaks. And quitting is important. It matters because it is the leading cause of preventable death and disability in the United States. And quitting at any age provides immediate and long-term health benefits. So with quitting, within 20 minutes, if we don't smoke for 20 minutes, our heart rate and our blood pressure begin to drop. Within 12 hours, the carbon monoxide levels in our bodies start to normalize back to normal. Within weeks to months, our circulation improves, our lung function improves. I have patients that tell me after a couple of weeks, I'm not coughing anymore, Bridget. And I said, yeah, I wonder why, right? We're not smoking anymore. And within a year, our risk of heart disease drops by half. And after 10 years, our risk of lung cancer drops by about up to 50%. So if the earlier we are able to quit smoking, the better chance we have of preventing these long-term health consequences. Some mental and emotional benefits. It improves our mood. It reduces anxiety after that withdrawal phase, which is why we like to use nicotine replacement therapy, because then there is really no withdrawal symptoms that patients are experiencing. It increases self-control and self-confidence in ourselves. Better sleep and more energy, fewer mood swings and less spikes caused by that fluctuation of nicotine in our brain. And then it improves recovery from other substance use disorders. So a lot of times in recovery centers across America, you'll find patients have better success rates if they quit all substances at one time, as opposed to trying to keep hold of the cigarette while they're quitting some other substances. Some financial benefits, okay? There's a large financial benefit into quitting. The average cost of cigarettes in Philadelphia right now is about $14, which, New York City is about $18 for one pack, so that's 20 cigarettes, okay? That would save about $420 per month if you're buying a pack, and over $5,000 per year. Now, what we find is a lot of patients use loosies, which are loose cigarettes, which are illegal, but I'm not ratting anyone out. They are not legal to use, and those loosies can cost anywhere from $2 to $5 for just one cigarette, okay? And over time, if we do that math, that's about $700 a year that they'd be saving on not using those cigarettes. And this money can be put toward anything. A lot of times when we're working with patients who are quitting, we ask them to store that money away, and when they hit a big milestone, they treat themselves, whether that's like a good meal out or, going on a trip somewhere after their 1 year or whatever they'd like to do. But it's really important. It's a huge cost benefit. I'll leave that up for a second. I see someone taking a picture, okay? And then with family and community benefits, there is a large family and community benefit if someone quits. It does protect people from experiencing secondhand or thirdhand smoke. So I mentioned that earlier. Firsthand smoke is what the smoker is breathing in. Secondhand smoke is what we breathe in around someone who is smoking. Thirdhand smoke is what's left over. If you've ever had to clean someone who's passed away that smokes inside of their home and you've had to wipe the walls off, you're getting the tar, you're getting all of that, the smell in the couch, and it's in the couch cushions, it's on your clothes, it's in your hair. That's called third-hand smoke, and all of that is harmful, all of that is cancer-causing, all of that is dangerous for us, okay? And if we are able to quit, it reduces the environmental impact, obviously. Cigarette butts are the most littered thing in the world, so if we care about being eco-friendly and environmentally savvy, cigarette butts are the thing that we need to put a kibosh to, okay? Our bigger picture here is that tobacco use is the leading driver of chronic illness, especially in under-resourced communities like the city of Philadelphia. Big tobacco is known to target vulnerable populations like our youth, like people of color, like low-income, socioeconomic status individuals, our queer people, indigenous communities, people with mental health or substance use disorders, and our incarcerated or institutionalized populations, okay? Philadelphia, I think it's changed in recent weeks, but we have been notably the largest, poorest big city in America, and we are the hot spot for tobacco companies to target. If next time you go into a corner store and if they sell tobacco products, look at where those advertisements are. They're not up high where adults can see them, they're down low where kids can see them. They're bright colors because it attracts eyes of kids. That's why, you know, we used to have those little candy cigarettes and those candy cigars that would puff smoke, and we thought they were so cool. And while it's not necessarily harmful for children to have that at a young age, it primes their brain to thinking that's okay when they get a little bit older to make that decision for themselves. Smoking-related diseases cost the US about $300 billion annually in direct medical costs and lost productivity. So it's important to remember that every person who tries to quit, even if it takes multiple attempts, it plays a very large part in creating a world where fewer people start smoking and more people live longer and healthier lives. So we have some barriers to quit, like trauma, grief, stress, all of that, misinformation, stigma, and a lack of culturally responsive care. Nicotine replacement therapy is a good resource. It's a good option. There's a lot of misconceptions that I'm hoping to kind of nip in the bud today. Nicotine replacement therapy is safe, it is effective, and it is a way to ease nicotine cravings and withdrawal from someone who was wanting to stop smoking. Nicotine replacement therapy uses controlled amounts of nicotine without all the other harmful chemicals that are inside of that cigarette to give your brain that nicotine, to keep our brain calm, and to get ourselves less addicted to those cigarettes, okay? You'll see them in 3 different forms most commonly. We do have a resource table that we have free nicotine replacement therapy quit kits. They're little samples to try. I find a lot of patients vehemently hate the lozenge, or they love the lozenge, or they hate the gum, or love the gum. So this gives you a sampling to try if you know someone in your life who is smoking. It gives them a sampling so that when they go to the doctor, they know which they like better, so we don't have to waste time in trying to find one that works better for us, okay? But you'll see them in the patch, the gum, and the lozenge. They're kind of on the screen here today. The patch you wear like a Band-Aid, the gum you chew a little bit until it gets soft, and then you park it, and it gets absorbed through our bloodstream like our mucous membranes in our mouth. And the lozenge works like a mint. You roll it around in your mouth until it's dissolved. And over time, you know, it does help. We kind of call it the training wheels of the nicotine, of the quitting the nicotine. It gives our body the ability to quit and to decrease that stress in our body while giving ourselves, our brain, you know, some options to try. Nicotine replacement therapy, there are also medication options. They're not always available for everyone, but I do like to talk about them. Varenicline is a medication that you take. You take a couple of pills and then you start on it. You can stay on that for up to 6 months to a year. And that medication works by telling your brain that the dopamine doesn't hit our brain when we're smoking anymore. It changes the taste of the cigarette or anything that you have with the cigarette. A lot of my patients, if they have their cup of coffee in their cigarette in the morning, they don't like their coffee anymore in the morning, which is really sad because I'm a coffee drinker too and I understand that, but it changes the way that our brain interacts with the chemicals that are coming from the cigarette, and we don't like it anymore. And then bupropion as well. Some other methods are quitting cold turkey, which we know success rates are lower, but some people do succeed that way, so I always like to mention that it is an option. It's not the most effective, but it is an option still. Gradual reduction or tapering and behavioral support. So with a quit coach, if you call the 1-800-QUIT-NOW number, you get to meet, there we go, you get to meet with people. They are trained tobacco treatment specialists, and they are able to assist you in quitting. It is a tailored program, it's individualized, I don't have any patient that quits the same way. If they'd like to reduce their rate, then we start by saying, okay, can you take 1 cigarette away every day? We meet again, let's try another one. And over time, we'll gradually decrease if that's the only thing they're willing to do. You can still see benefits that way. Harm reduction is a real thing and it works really well. So we like to do that as best as possible. So you can call the Quit Now number. You can also text. There's a text line. This website will take you to it as well. It offers with trained quit coaches. There's English or Spanish. They're available 24/7. So at the health centers, we only operate during business hours. But if you work a night shift and you are only available in a certain period of time, it's available for you. And you have up to 5 free calls, but unlimited calls in. So you can call whenever you're struggling and they'll be able to help you. It's a state-funded program and it is free for the state of Pennsylvania residents. So I urge and challenge you all to use it. And then there's some other specialty quit line programs like a pregnancy protocol, a youth protocol for youth specifically who might be vaping or using tobacco, and then an incentive program for menthol users. Menthol users is predominantly used in communities of color, is predominantly the main folks that use menthol cigarettes. And there's some genetic markers with that as well. Most people of color have a CYP2A6 gene, and that gene makes you more inclined to be addicted to menthol. So they push that in communities of color where that gene is commonly most found. But I said a lot, I talked a lot. There's a link, a QR code to our website at the City of Philadelphia. And then Renelle and my contact info is up there. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll be up here later to answer more. Thank you.
Again, at the conclusion of our program, we'll have question and answer session. We heard a little bit about how much it costs to smoke, but let's talk a little bit about financial health navigation. And to help us with that, we have Ms. Yolanda Hildenbrand, who's going to help us do that. Ms. Hildenbrand earned her Master of Science in Social Work at Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky. She is a licensed clinical social worker and currently working at the Norton Cancer Institute Behavior Oncology Division, which is part of Norton Healthcare in Louisville, Kentucky. In Ms. Hildebrand's 19 years, she has been a passionate advocate for the treatment of her patients, both in terms of behavior, mentally, and emotional disorders. Ms. Hildebrand, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. So I'm Yolanda. I am one of the clinical social workers. What is it? Talk up. Closer. That better? Okay, there we go. So I'm one of the clinical social workers for Norton Cancer Institute in Louisville, Kentucky. So my role comprises of therapy for our oncology patients as well as resources. So it's kind of split up. So some days I do therapy, some days I do resources. So today I'm going to talk to you briefly about financial literacy and the impact that it has on cancer care. You could probably take this with just about any medical situation you go through or any type of financial questions or needs you have while you're a patient. Okay, I'm going to take this off because I got to move around. I can't see. Okay, there we go. So I have a lot of information here, and I'm not going to be able to touch on all of it, even though I've taken a lot of slides out. But what I'll do is try to impact or hit the most important. So if I say, ooh, you should really know this, you might probably want to write it down, or you should really know this, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is financial literacy and what it is. Basically, in a nutshell, financial literacy is knowing about your finances. It's knowing about the insurance that you have. It's knowing about what you have in your pocket to pay for co-pays, deductibles, medications, those things. So when you are financially literate, you have positive and negative outcomes. Positive outcomes help with your mental, and of course, like I said, I'm a social worker, so I'm all about your mental. it helps reduce stress, and it helps you utilize your health care better, right? Because a lot of us don't know about our health care. We don't know about our benefits or what we have. And one thing I'll say is I just got my new benefits book in the mail the other day because it's time for us to renew. Do y'all get those in the mail? Okay. Probably about 5 years ago when I got that in the mail, I just threw it away, right? And then I would just check same policy that I had last year. That's it, and just move on. Keep that benefits book. I've started keeping it, and I actually look at it, and I use it, and I make sure that, one, I'm getting the right copays charged to me, and I know what my insurance covers. If I have questions, I always call my insurance carrier. So the negative impact is care is delayed or not started because we're afraid that we're not going to be able to afford cancer care or whatever kind of care. That also includes, we were talking about medications earlier on the 304B. So this is that situation. Medications are not affordable. If your medications are not affordable, you're not going to take them. You're not going to participate in the treatment. So now this leads me to financial toxicity. And basically what financial toxicity is not knowing how to manage your money, right? Not knowing what your insurance pays for and what your insurance does not pay for. I'm not going to go through all that because it's a lot, but I just pretty much summed it up. But I do want to get to the out-of-pocket cost, right? Because it tends to go up. So it shows in 2010 it was $1,800 out of pocket. In 2020 it was $2,900 out of pocket. So now it's 2025. What do you think it is? Yeah, it's $5,000 to $6,000 easily. Okay. So one thing that we're noticing is that the insurance companies, your premiums are going up, and they're diverting more of the cost to you. Okay, socioeconomic risk factors. Age is a risk factor. Younger, of course I had to pull Jamie in there because she's younger. But when you're younger, a lot of times, and I'm not saying this about you, Jamie, I don't know your money. But when you're younger, we don't have things saved. We don't have money put away. We feel like we are living, we're having our best life. We're not worried about getting cancer. We're not worried about paying for cancer. So it becomes a shock. Older survivors of cancer are vulnerable because cancer takes away from a lot from them. Their physical, their emotional, their mental. It disrupts things. It disrupts work and education. Sometimes it disrupts their social life. Okay, so those are some reasons why they won't get treatment. Also, income, race and ethnicity, geographic location, employment. That's another thing I want to say. Make sure you know what your employer does to help you cancer-wise. And I'm not talking about your actual insurance now. I'm talking about, you know, where we work, there's like a pool of money. So if we get sick with pretty much any type of medical diagnosis and we can't work for a while, we have a pool of money that's going to go in and help us pay bills and sometimes pay for prescriptions or whatever. So check with your employer if you're still working, just to make sure, okay? And the other thing, health insurance. I meant to get to that. A lot of cancer patients are underinsured, right? And it gets to the point where I've noticed a lot of our Medicare patients have Medicare Part A, but don't have Medicare Part B, right? Anybody in the room have Medicare Part A and don't have Medicare Part B? Okay, I'm gonna talk to you afterwards. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you afterwards. But it's important to not be underinsured because that also keeps patients from getting care because it's almost really unaffordable when you don't have the right insurance. So additional risk factors. You find out you have cancer, you delay treatment because you just can't believe that you have cancer, right? So then it's an advanced stage, which is more expensive. So now you're piling the money on. It may require chemotherapy or radiation, whereas prior it didn't, but we waited, so again, the stage advanced. Or if you're someone with comorbidities, high blood pressure, diabetes, what have you, and you still delayed. So another risk factor is households, right? So in certain households, the moneymaker of the household, right? If the moneymaker of the household gets cancer, it's going to drop bills paid in the household for the most part, unless you're financially stable with everything. So, consequences. First one is access and adherence to treatments. Patients may not take their medication as directed to save money, which I do get that. I mean, you got to eat, you got to live in your house, so sometimes patients choose to pay their rent or their mortgage instead of getting that medication. Okay, quality of life and quality of care. So lower quality, patients might experience a lower quality of life, including poor physical and mental health, be unsatisfied with social aspects of their life, relationships, because they're worrying about reoccurrence of cancer. Other financial consequences are going to be debt, bankruptcy. And in the United States here, if you see, 62% of all bankruptcies that we have are medical debt, right? And 78% of those people had insurance. So they may have been uninsured. Right? Okay. Impact on caregivers. Is anybody in here a caregiver? You're not a caregiver. You're not. Okay. So as far as caregivers, we have to look at the financial strain on a caregiver, because if you're a caregiver, sometimes you have to take off work. You have to go in and work late. You have to go in and work early. You have to flip-flop it a little bit to get that cancer patient what they need. So then that impacts the caregiver. And with that said, while I'm thinking, some programs also have finances for caregivers, so remember that. So you might, if you want to ask me about that later too, I just thought about that. Okay, so here's some interventions to help reduce financial toxicity. And a lot of this has already been said today. The financial navigator, being financially literate, which is, we're learning right now because I'm up here talking about it, so you're already ahead of the game. Price transparency. A lot of people don't know that you can ask your hospital to tell you how much this is going to cost. You can ask them how much your insurance is contracted to pay for this so that you know. Also, there's value-based. So our hospital with the value-based, they'll tell you how much. They'll even work out something with you, of course, if you're paying cash for it. And some patients do have the cash to pay, so they get a lower rate. And then, of course, we have to keep with health insurance reform to help bring the costs down of cancer care and any other type medical care that we need. And then there is a psychosocial intervention, because when you have cancer, you're already struggling with having cancer, but then you're also having that mental breakdown. And when you have that mental breakdown, sometimes you can't work. You can't do a lot of things you did because you're depressed or you're anxious. Okay. So again, just briefly touching on mental health, because it does impact the financial toxicity. When working people are newly diagnosed with cancer, often behavioral clinicians help their clients with multiple and concrete clinical tasks. That will be me. So what I usually do is help them facilitate, one, that you have cancer and help them deal with the cancer. Then we talk about outside resources. We communicate with the family, we communicate with the doctors, and I'm real big on pulling out the spiritual concept, because a lot of time the spiritual is what gets patients through. And then, of course, mourning the loss of healthy self, because a lot of times when patients have cancer, mainly I'm gonna go with breast cancer. I know we're talking about lung, but breast cancer, the women, as a woman, our bodies is our temple. So when we lose some of our temple, we struggle with that, and that causes mourning of healthy self. Right. Okay. And so if someone is struggling with a basic socioeconomic need, how can they begin to engage in the coping process? How do they start to make sense of their experience? Cancer represents an existential threat and a reminder of our mortality. Financial toxicity may compound that threat. So of course, when we have cancer, we're not thinking of this, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've all heard of that, right? We've all heard of that. You know, we need, from the bottom up, we need the physiological, the safety, belonging, loving needs, esteem needs. The self-actualization, sometimes it takes us a lifetime to get through that, so some of us haven't even got through that yet, probably including myself. But during cancer, of course, we have all these needs, and it's a lot of times the caregivers and the hospital staff that are gonna give some of those needs. So interventions and problem solving for financial toxicity. This is where I come in, the social worker, right? This is important, right? This is important. The social worker is your most important, other than your family and your doctor, ally when you have cancer, because they're the person that has the resources, right? They're the person that are gonna link you to what you need. For instance, when they were talking about the 304B program earlier, say you can't afford that medication, right? When he was talking about that, tell that to the social worker, because that social worker is gonna see if you qualify for that 340B and help you get that, right? Nurses, nurse practitioners, and medical doctors also are supposed to help with distress. Financial counselors, has everybody reached out to a financial counselor before? Or you know the difference between a social worker and a financial counselor? You know the difference? Okay. So here, I'm gonna tell you my difference, where I work. Financial counselor is the person that's supposed to help you find your cancer medications at a lower rate or for free, or to sign you up for prescription programs. Okay, they're also supposed to help you with, a lot of hospitals have their own financial programs. So the financial counselors sign you up for these programs. And a lot of these programs are not talked about, so you have to ask. So one thing that I say is definitely advocate for yourself and ask a bunch of questions, right? Ask for things you know you're not gonna get, because then you'll get something out of it. And then of course, your physician secretary, and a lot of people don't know that that person is the person that completes your FMLA paperwork. That person also has grants that you can apply for. Like a lot of people don't know that, you know, because the doctors get grants, and the secretary is the person that handles the grants that the doctors get. So I've already talked about the hospital assistance program, but did a lot of people in here know about their hospital assistance programs? Nope. Okay. So whenever you go in the hospital, if you feel that your bill is going to be too much, ask them what type of programs do they have. Ask them about indigent programs. Ask them about grant programs. And then this is just without common referrals, and these are actually very helpful to our cancer patients. When you're going to chemo and radiation, you're not working. So you're unable to pay your rent, your gas, your mortgage sometimes. You can't bring food in the house. You don't have Boost and you're not able to eat. So one thing that we do is we find money in the community, but also our social work team, we've partnered with some outside agencies in our community. So we're able to help pay bills and help pay for some some lower cost prescriptions, which is why I said it's important that you reach out to social workers. It's very important. Other things is applying for Social Security disability insurance. Anybody in here apply for that during cancer? Nope. So that's another one, and what they have is a program called Compassionate Allowance. So take this information back to someone else that you know that may have cancer, is that they can apply for Social Security disability insurance Compassionate Allowance, and what that does is like an expedited Social Security application. Gets approved in 30 days or less, and it's certain cancer diagnoses that are automatically approved with that. So that'll help also with the financial difficulties. Also, medical bills. Again, you reach out to your hospital or your financial counselor to ask them about medical bills, setting up sometimes payment arrangements, but also setting up indigent payments. Transportation. That's a big one. Where we are is transportation. People can't get to and from. We have grants for transportation that come in. A lot of hospitals have grants, but you have to ask. As a matter of fact, people hadn't asked so much. We have a ton of money left over from grants. So you have to ask because there is money. Even with everything going on right now, there's still money within the hospital settings. Current housing. Now, a lot of times, as a social worker, I'll get a referral and they'll say, this person needs housing, they don't have anywhere to live. I'm gonna be honest, I can't find you a house or an apartment, but I can find you some money for you to find an apartment, and I can get you a down payment, and I can get you first month's rent. Those type of things. So believe it or not, your hospital social workers can do that to help lessen your financial stress. These are some resources. I didn't put a whole bunch of resources in for Philadelphia because your hospitals have certain grants, certain programs. So I didn't want to just assume or pick certain hospitals, so then I want you to think I was thinking one was better than the other. But these right here have been very instrumental in helping my patients. That one, I did put the top one because it's linked to Gilda's Club. Has anybody in here ever been to Gilda's Club? You like Gilda's Club? Very helpful. Yes, they're very helpful. One other thing that I wanted to say, because I wrote some stuff down, and that was, so we're talking about that Medicare, Medicaid, what's going on right now. So I know that they have brought, or they're bringing back some of the people that were furloughed on Monday, but it's supposed to be to help with open enrollment. So what I want to say about that is if you're someone that's, or you know someone that's in the middle of treatment and all of a sudden they don't have insurance, reach out to the hospital for programs that they have. Also reach out to the public universities because a lot of times the universities have programs. Like where I live, University of Louisville has a program. If you can't afford your cancer care, they say, don't worry about it, we got you, and they really do, because they have money from state and federal funds that they use to help pay for cancer care. So in a nutshell, I think that's it. If you have questions, please stop and ask me, because like I said, I had to roll through this, but I'll be here to answer anything that you have.
Thank you very much, Lord. Thank you. Just come up and have a seat. Let's have everybody else, Donald, William, Bridget, and let's bring up Dr. Flano, if you don't mind coming up even, sir. Just to handle a few, we only have a few minutes in order to handle some questions. So we'll try to move things along with that. While folks are coming up, you know, William, we heard a couple times about navigators and things. So tell me, how does it work when we talk about navigator as far as financial navigation versus how do you guys work together? Do you come together working with somebody like in the social work side? Let's start off with you, and then how if a patient has a problem and then how they work, you guys work together.
Yes, sir. So as a navigator, our job is to be the connector. So if a patient comes
come to us and just mention that, hey, I'm having this financial setback. Do you know anything? That's one thing we would do. Like, sure, like let us connect you with our financial social workers or our financial team to guide you in that direction. It's really like being a facilitator to all of these points. Is just to make sure the patient gets to the right person with one phone call, because that's frustrating.
Which we get to someone like you? I mean, is it something we should expect? So when we hear about these cancer conferences, where people talking about the treatments and things, is that automatically going to plug us into a person such as yourself?
No, a lot of times, like he was saying, financial navigators will do social work referrals, but patients can self-refer. So if you know you're struggling, you're gonna struggle, then you can just ask for a social worker. Because a lot of times if you don't ask for one, you're not gonna get one. Or by the time we get to you, you've already gone all the way down.
Okay. So we hear about, yeah, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, this is Dr. Flano. He's an interventional pulmonologist, runs a lung nodule clinic at Grady Hospital, and spoke yesterday.
So for those that were here last night, I really want to stress the importance of the navigators and the roles that they play. If you recall from last night, we talked about this thing about the doubling time and how once you get that diagnosis of lung cancer, you're on a time clock, not to sit around things. These navigators play a crucial role in getting them through the process, getting things arranged in a timely fashion so cancer doesn't have the opportunity to spread, trying to deal with phone calls, getting connected, getting the financial squared away. So the role of navigators is crucial to an efficient care of management of lung cancer.
Don't worry, Dr. Flano. I'll make sure Dana heard what you said. Please stand up, Dr. Morris.
Hi. They can hear me. Good afternoon. So my question, two-part, regarding the financial help. If you have health insurance, and we know health insurance doesn't cover everything, am I still eligible for financial support?
So that's going to depend on your facility. We do have some grants that we get that are not income-based. So you have to ask for every grant. But no, that doesn't automatically exclude you because you have health insurance. Most of the patients that receive assistance from us have health insurance. And it's not Medicaid, it's like Medicare, it is commercial insurance. So it's a mixture.
Yes, sir.
You did ask us about Medicare Part B, but we're both retired, and she was retired from the government, but we are carrying on our government insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield, so that's how we're covered with insurance.
So you do have more than just Part A?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good. He said he's retired and they still carrying on. That's pretty good, man. I like that. Public health perspective. I am off the street and I want information on smoking today. Do I just walk into your office, or do I have to be referred by a healthcare provider?
So the city health centers, you have to be a patient to be seen. However, the state quit line that's available via the website or via the phone call, the 1-800-QUIT-NOW number, you don't have to be referred. You can self-refer yourself by giving them a call and getting connected.
Tell us, Donna, from your perspective as the patient, if you have to go back now and tell that 30-year-old person, this is what you need to know, what is that point going to be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
That if you go back in time to that 30-year-old person, 30-year-old Donna, and you're going to tell her something, what is it you want to tell her?
Be proactive in your healthcare and not reactive. Don't wait for something to happen to live your best life. Don't wait for something to happen to, be more engaged in your healthcare. But just, be very proactive.
Okay. We're going to take one last question. Then when we come back from that, I want each of you to give me a 30-second final comment after this last question. Yes, ma'am. Stand up. Yes, stand up.
Hi. I have a question. I'm Donna's sister, and she's been through so much. And one of the things that she mentioned that she went through was being allergic to one of the treatments that were supposed to like help shrink her tumor. So it made her very sick, as she mentioned. So what other, if someone's allergic to medications such as chemo that can be life-saving treatment, are there any other options that would be available for her?
So Eric, I think you have to address it from two perspectives. Number one, true allergy from the medication, and number two, a hyperreaction to the medication that patients are taking, because sometimes people will conflate the two, though they can have a very similar response. So Dr. Flano, why don't you give a response to that, please?
So, before he does that,
Yes.
I want to say, now I understand, so I am allergic to the medication for this particular
Yeah, because there are a lot of
I have.
chemicals in some of the medications
Right.
that we'll call allergic
So I've
reactions,
tried-
no
yeah,
doubt.
really bad.
Yeah.
And so I've tried it 3 or 4 times, and then because of that, I have had kidney failure, so my kidneys are damaged, so I cannot take chemotherapy.
Right, but I want to hear from a more broader perspective, because sometimes patients, we'll hear people say, well, I'm allergic to penicillin. Well, what happens when you take penicillin? I get diarrhea. That's not an allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis, that's an allergic reaction. So that's why I want to make sure the difference between the two. That was the thing. And thank you very much for that question. And you're obviously the younger sister, is that correct? Yeah, okay.
So a couple of things on it. Yeah, so differences between allergic reaction and some side effects, because there are differences. But allergic reactions or anaphylaxis or reaction can be life-threatening and should limit you from actually having exposure to those medications again, unless it's the only option that you have for treatment. Side effects, a little bit different. If and you watch one of the commercials during the evening news, and they'll go through like, it's almost they go through a list of side effects that is longer than the actual benefit of the drug. Is this, whatever else. Those are side effects, and they may limit you the comfort of being able to take it. The reality, though, is, and if you remember what Ms. Knox was talking about last night about biomarker testing and looking for other alternative therapies, there's about 35 to 38 new medications for lung cancer this year that we can get tested for to see if you can have a very targeted, specific improvement with your outcome, with your response, and it's individualized for your specific cancer. And with that, there's a lot less side effects, there's a lot less reactions to those. Some of them train your own immune system to help fight the cancer. The thing you have to realize is we have to be empowered to ask for those, right? We have to have the knowledge that they exist, that we ask for them, that we work through the system with the physicians, with the nurse practitioners you work with the navigators that can get these right, get you the people that can answer these questions, and so that the treatment is safe, efficient, and comes with good outcomes.
And please do not confuse these reactions with people who talk about vaccine hesitancy because they're concerned about some of the products that are in these things. These are very well tested, very looked at. I was forced to ask, Ms. Knox wanted to ask something. She wouldn't let me go by, so please.
She's the expert.
I promise I'm gonna be quick. This is for Yolanda. I just wanna know if the social workers are connected to the pharmaceutical companies to have access to some of the resources that they provide to patients when we can't afford medications and stuff like that, or is that something that we as patients have to take ownership on in terms of getting in touch with them?
We are connected to some of them. The ones that come in the hospital and talk to us, we're connected to them. But it's always important as a patient that you self-advocate for that. So if you know you're getting a prescription for something, get on the website, go look at their website. A lot of them have patient advocacy. They also have applications to help you. Sometimes it doesn't matter what your income is. But yes, your social workers do have an in.
All right, starting on this end, I want the 30-second take-home message. That's this end here. Oh, pass it down.
What?
I want to come down because we're giving you a break so you can catch your breath. Go ahead.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Take-home message, 30 seconds. Care about yourself. Ask questions. If you're unsure, ask again and ask for a breakdown. Get screened if you're a smoker. Make sure you follow up with your primary care doctor on your annuals and your biannual visits.
get your blood work done, know what's going on with your body.
If you stretch $1 like you do 30 seconds, whoa.
I don't have anything else to say. You just like went through everything. I would say any cancer, any disease state is pretty complex. It's no longer sort of a cut and dry thing, all the way from the emotional, the socioeconomic, and the medical aspects of it. And we're trying and we're working in the medical profession to make this transition more efficient so that the care is better. And so that's why we have this whole process. And it goes all the way up, and you heard about it even with the medical governmental issues, which I don't want to say too much because I'll get deported. But I think these are things that we have to look at, but know that there's help out there, and you just need to ask for it, know how to ask for it.
Y'all are funny.
Go ahead, Donna. The older.
I forgot what I was saying.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Here we go.
Texas is already Mexico, so we don't have to worry about them being deported far. Go ahead.
Do not fight alone. Do not go through any of this alone. Find yourself a community of support. I did not have that in the beginning. I have that now. We created one for ourselves, a group of ladies. Get help, for your paperwork. Ask, if you have any questions or anything, find someone that you know who may know someone to get assistance from. But do not try to go through this alone. Community, love, that's what saved my life all the time.
Bridget.
You should have went last. The only thing that I would say is that tobacco use disorder is just as addictive and just as dangerous and should carry the same weight as all other addictions. A lot of times we dismiss people who use tobacco products and say that, well, that's a choice you made and you can quit and it's really easy to quit, but it's actually quite difficult. Nicotine is the most addictive chemical that we have in the entire world. So it's important to assist people who are trying to quit, let them know that you're there for them and give them the support and the love and the courage that they need. But also there are free resources to quit and they don't have to do it alone, and there are professionals that can help them any time of day.
Yolanda.
I should have went first. Self-advocate, reach out to a social worker, and then this is really important. Talk to other patients, because other patients can give you really good information, resources they have, financial assistance, they have programs that help, and I'm really big on groups. And I know it sounds weird, but a lot of patients join these Facebook groups. Now, some of the groups is off the chain, but some of the groups are very instrumental in helping you navigate.
Want to remind, first off, hand for the panel. I'd like to remind you, fill out the post survey. We talked about, last night, we talked about the consortium that's going to be held in New Orleans in April, I think around the 23rd through 24th, or 25th or 26th. If you want more information about that and or anything else that HEAL is doing, go to healcollaborative.org. That's healcollaborative.org. You can register for the symposium and you get more information. Fill out the post survey for us. For those of you who've been here, I think it's been wonderful. Give yourselves a hand, if you will, please. We've had some wonderful questions and all this sort of thing, and I'm getting another instruction. Yes, ma'am. Okay, hold on. Well, what I was reminded of for the third time from somebody. No, there are vendors that are outside, and thank you very much, Dr. Morris. And there's also lunch that is provided down in the hallway out in the other room. So please make sure you get that. And again, if there are vendors, go by. Please also make sure you see Mr. Brother William here. Saab, I know it is Saab, I was messing with him. But Mr. Saab, if you will, about getting signed up as far as screening is concerned. And I think the last thing and most important thing, Bishop Felton, you have once again been a magnificent host. Magnificent. And of all the places we go, I can't think of any place where we get quite the turnout and quite the enthusiasm as what you always provide, sir. So if you would like to bring us out of this, sir, then your hands. And once again, I'll just tell you that for those of you coming for lunch, there's only one thing standing between us and lunch. Him.
All right. Well, I'm not going to be standing for your lunch long. So thank you, Dr. Tuckson. We are always delighted to have you with us. We certainly appreciate the partnership that we've developed. Thank you, Dr. Charlotte Morris, for connecting Mount Airy with the HEAL Collaborative. And these panelists have done an outstanding job. Don't you think so? Let's give everyone a hand. So we have several events happening simultaneously today. We're planting 22 trees around. That's one of the grants that Mr. Trump saw fit not to cut. And so that's going to help produce a little more oxygen for us so that our lungs can have a fresh supply of oxygen. So let us pray. Father, we thank you for your divine favor and blessings upon us. Thank you for this most effective, informational, and inspirational seminar for these 2 days. And may we use this information and share it with others to make our communities a better place. May you bless our food and fellowship together in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you for coming.